I stand before you today to impart a profound message, one that possesses the power to revolutionize your existence if you dare to embrace it. Our theme, no risk, no story, is not merely a catchy phrase, but a fundamental truth of existence that, once understood and applied, will transform your world. Envision, if you will, a book with blank pages. This book is your life, and you are the author. Now, I ask you, what tale would you pen if you knew failure was impossible? What grand adventures would you embark upon if fear were not holding you back? For in truth, the only failure is the failure to try, to risk, to step out into the unknown. You see, my dear listeners, we are all endowed with the most magnificent power in the universe, the power of imagination. This power, when coupled with faith and persistent action, can move mountains, part seas, and rewrite the very fabric of our reality. But to harness this power, we must be willing to take risks, to venture beyond the comfortable confines of our current circumstances. Consider for a moment the great stories that have captivated humanity throughout the ages, the epic tales of heroes and heroines, of great discoveries and profound transformations. What do they all have in common? Risk. The willingness to step into the unknown, to face challenges, to dare greatly. Now, I want you to close your eyes for a moment. Feel the beating of your heart, the rhythm of your breath. In this moment, you are alive, vibrant with potential. And in this aliveness, you have a choice. Will you play it safe, clinging to the known and familiar, or will you embrace the uncertainty, the excitement, the sheer exhilaration of taking a risk? Remember, my listeners, that the world you see around you is nothing more than a reflection of your inner state. If you perceive life as a dangerous place, full of pitfalls and disappointments, then that is precisely what you will experience. But if you see life as a grand adventure, rife with opportunities and endless possibilities, then that is what will unfold before you. The secret, you see, is in your imagination. For what you imagine with feeling, with conviction, with the certainty of it being real, must inevitably manifest in your world. This is the law, as immutable as gravity, as certain as the rising of the sun. So I ask you, what story are you imagining for yourself? Is it a tale of mediocrity, of playing small, of avoiding risk at all costs? Or is it an epic saga of triumph, of bold action, of living life to its fullest potential? You might say, but I have tried to imagine a better life, and nothing has changed. To this, I say, persist. For the manifestation of your desires is not always immediate. It requires faith, unwavering faith in the reality of your imagined state. Let me share with you a profound truth: the future is not something that happens to you. It is something that you create, every moment of every day. You are shaping your future through your thoughts, your feelings, and your imagination. And to create a future worth living, you must be willing to take risks in the present. Now, when I speak of risk, I do not mean reckless abandon or foolhardy actions. No, the risk I speak of is the risk of believing in yourself, of trusting in the power of your imagination, of daring to dream big and act boldly. Consider the caterpillar, safely ensconced in its cocoon. To become a butterfly, it must risk everything it knows. It must dissolve its own form entirely, trusting in a process it cannot fully comprehend. And yet, without this risk, without this leap into the unknown, it would never know the joy of flight, the beauty of its transformed state. You, my dear listeners, are like that caterpillar. Within you lies the potential for transformation, for a life beyond your wildest dreams. But to realize this potential, you must be willing to risk, to step out of your comfort zone, to embrace the unknown. Imagine for a moment that you are at the end of your life, looking back on all that has transpired. What would you regret more, the risks you took, or the ones you didn't? The stories you lived, or the ones left untold? You see, life is not measured by the number of breaths we take, but by the moments that take our breath away. And those breathtaking moments, those pivotal chapters in our life story, are invariably born from risk, from daring to reach beyond what we thought possible. Now, some of you might be thinking, but I've taken risks before and failed. How can I trust in this process? To you, I say, there is no such thing as failure, only feedback. Every seeming setback, every apparent failure, is merely a stepping stone on your path to success. Remember, the outer world is a reflection of your inner state. If you perceive failure as final, as a reason to give up, then that is what you will experience. But if you see every experience as a valuable lesson, as a necessary part of your journey, then nothing can truly defeat you. In fact, I would argue that the greatest risk of all is not risking. For in playing it safe, in avoiding all possibility of failure or disappointment, we rob ourselves of the very experiences that make life worth living. We deny ourselves the opportunity for growth, for transformation, for the realization of our true potential. Think of the great inventors, the visionaries, the change-makers throughout history. Did they succeed on their first attempt? Rarely. But what set them apart was their willingness to persist, to keep taking risks, to keep believing in the reality of their imagined state despite all apparent evidence to the contrary. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This, my listeners, is the attitude of a true risk-taker, of someone who understands that every attempt, every risk taken, brings them one step closer to their desired outcome. Now, let us delve deeper into the nature of risk and its relation to our theme, no risk, no story. You see, risk is not just about external actions, but about our internal state of being. It's about being willing to challenge our own beliefs, to question our assumptions, to imagine a reality beyond what we currently perceive. The greatest risk of all is the risk of truly believing in yourself, of fully embracing your power as a creative being. For when you do this, when you truly accept that you are the author of your own story, you take full responsibility for your life. And with this responsibility comes tremendous power. Imagine for a moment that you are standing at the edge of a cliff. Before you stretches a vast chasm, and on the other side lies everything you've ever dreamed of: success, love, fulfillment, joy. The only way to reach it is to jump. This jump, this leap of faith, represents the risk we must take to create the life we desire. Now, most people will stand at the edge of this cliff, paralyzed by fear. They'll look down into the chasm and see only danger, only the possibility of failure. But the true risk-taker, the one who understands the power of imagination, sees something entirely different. Instead of focusing on the chasm, they focus on the other side. They imagine, with every fiber of their being, the feeling of standing on that distant shore, of having achieved their heart's desire. And in that moment of complete faith, of absolute certainty in the reality of their imagined state, they jump. This, my dear listeners, is the essence of living a life of risk, of creating a story worth telling. It's about having the courage to believe in the unseen, to trust in the power of your imagination, to act as if your desired state were already a reality. Now, some of you might be wondering, how can I develop this kind of faith? How can I cultivate the courage to take such risks? The answer, as always, lies in your imagination. Start small. Begin by imagining yourself as slightly more confident, slightly more willing to take risks. Feel the exhilaration of stepping just a little bit out of your comfort zone. As you do this, as you experience the joy and growth that comes from these small risks, your faith will grow. Remember, faith is not something that you either have or don't have. It's a muscle that can be developed, strengthened through consistent exercise. And the exercise of faith is simple: imagine the life you desire, feel the reality of it with all your senses, and then act from that state of being. As you do this, you'll find that taking risks becomes easier, more natural. You'll begin to see opportunities where before you saw only obstacles. You'll start to write a new story for your life, one filled with adventure, growth, and transformation. Now, let me address a common misconception about risk. Many people believe that taking risks means abandoning all caution, all planning. This is not the case. True risk-taking, the kind that leads to great stories and remarkable achievements, is not reckless. It's calculated, it's intentional, it's guided by a clear vision of what you want to achieve. Think of it like this: when an archer takes aim at a target, they don't simply loose the arrow and hope for the best. They consider the distance, the wind, the weight of the arrow. They adjust their stance, their grip, their focus. And then, in that moment of perfect alignment, they release. This is how we should approach risk in our lives. We set our target, our goal, our desired state. We consider the factors at play, our current circumstances, our resources, our skills. We make adjustments as needed, always keeping our eye on the target. And then, when the moment is right, we take the shot. But here's the crucial part: once we've taken that shot, once we've taken that risk, we must have faith in the outcome. We must trust in the power of our imagination, in the reality of our desired state. For it is this faith, this unwavering belief, that bridges the gap between where we are and where we want to be. Now, I want you to think about your own life for a moment. What risks have you been avoiding? What stories have you left untold because of fear, because of doubt, because of a reluctance to step into the unknown? Perhaps it's a career change you've been dreaming of but haven't pursued because it seems too risky. Or a relationship you've longed for but haven't initiated for fear of rejection. Maybe it's a creative project you've held back on, worried that it might not be good enough. Whatever it is, I want you to imagine right now what your life would look like if you took that risk. Feel the excitement, the joy, the sense of fulfillment that would come from pursuing your heart's desire. Let that feeling permeate every cell of your being. You see, my listeners, the risk is not in taking action, but in remaining stagnant. The risk is not in pursuing your dreams, but in letting them wither away unfulfilled. For a life without risk is a life half-lived, a story left untold. Consider the great heroes of mythology and literature. Did they achieve greatness by playing it safe? Did they create compelling stories by avoiding risk? Of course not. They ventured into the unknown, faced their fears, overcame obstacles, and in doing so, they not only transformed their own lives but inspired countless others. You have within you the same potential for greatness, for heroism, for transformation. But to realize this potential, you must be willing to risk, to step out of the known and into the realm of infinite possibilities. Now, some of you might be thinking, but what if I take a risk and things don't work out as I imagined? To this, I say, there is no failure, only feedback. Every risk you take, every action you initiate from a place of faith and imagination, brings you valuable experience, growth, and insight. Remember, the outer world is a reflection of your inner state. If you approach risk with fear, with doubt, with a focus on potential negative outcomes, then that is what you will tend to experience. But if you approach risk with faith, with excitement, with a clear vision of your desired outcome, then you open yourself up to miraculous possibilities. Think of life as a grand experiment, and you are the scientist. Each risk you take is a hypothesis, a theory about what is possible in your world. Some experiments will yield the results you expect, others will surprise you, but all of them, without exception, will teach you something valuable about yourself and the nature of your reality. The key is to maintain an attitude of curiosity, of openness to whatever unfolds. For in truth, you never know which risk, which leap of faith, will be the one that catapults you into a whole new level of being. Imagine for a moment that you are the protagonist in a novel. Would you want to read a story where the main character never takes any risks, never faces any challenges, never steps out of their comfort zone? Of course not. Such a story would be dull, uninspiring, forgettable. Now imagine instead a story where the protagonist dares greatly, where they face their fears, where they take bold action in pursuit of their dreams. This is a story worth reading, worth telling, worth living. You, my dear listeners, are the protagonist in your own life story. And with every risk you take, with every leap of faith, you are writing new, exciting chapters in that story. You are creating a life that is rich with experience, growth, and transformation. But remember, the power to create this story lies not in external circumstances, but in your own imagination. For what you imagine with feeling, with conviction, with the certainty of it being real, must inevitably manifest in your world. So I challenge you, right here and now, to imagine the most exciting, fulfilling version of your life story. What risks would you take if you knew you could not fail? What bold actions would you initiate if you truly believed in the power of your imagination? Feel the reality of this imagined state. Let it permeate every aspect of your being. And then, from this place of faith and certainty, take action. Take that risk. Write that new chapter in your life story. For in the end, it is not the risks we take that we regret, but the ones we don't. It is not the stories we live that haunt us, but the ones left untold. Remember, my listeners, no risk, no story. Your life is a blank canvas waiting for you to paint upon it with bold strokes of courage and imagination. Will you play it safe and create a pale, forgettable image? Or will you risk it all and create a masterpiece? The choice, as always, is yours. But I urge you, with all my heart, to choose risk. Choose adventure. Choose to write a story so compelling, so inspiring, that it not only transforms your own life but touches the lives of all those around you. For when you do this, when you fully embrace the power of your imagination and the necessity of risk, you become more than just the protagonist in your own story. You become an inspiration, a beacon of possibility for others. You become living proof of the transformative power of faith and imagination. And so, my dear listeners, I leave you with this final thought: your life is not a dress rehearsal. This is the main event. This is your one precious opportunity to create a story worth telling, a life worth living. Will you seize it? Will you risk it all for the sake of your dreams? The stage is set. The pen is in your hand. The blank pages of your future await. What story will you write? What risks will you take? What adventures will you embark upon? Remember, no risk, no story. The choice is yours. The power is yours. The time is now. Go forth, my listeners, and risk greatly. For in doing so, you not only create an extraordinary life for yourself, but you inspire others to do the same. You become a living testament to the power of imagination, the importance of faith, and the transformative nature of risk. Your story is waiting to be written. Your life is waiting to be lived. Embrace the risk. Embrace the unknown. And watch as miracles unfold before your very eyes. For in the end, it is not the risks we take that define us, but the stories we create through those risks. So make your story a grand one. A tale of courage, of transformation, of dreams realized and potential fulfilled. Remember, you are the author of your own life. Write boldly. Live fully. Risk greatly. For in doing so, you create not just a story, but a legacy, a testament to the power of human imagination and the indomitable spirit of those who dare to dream. Go now and write your story. Take those risks. Live that adventure. For in the tapestry of existence, it is not the common threads that stand out, but the bold, bright strands of those who dare to risk it all in pursuit of their dreams. Your story awaits. Your adventure begins now. Embrace it with all your heart, with all your imagination, with all your faith. For in the end, it is not the years in your life that count, but the life in your years. And a life filled with risk, with bold action, with unwavering faith, is a life truly worth living. So go forth, my listeners, and risk. Risk greatly. Risk boldly. For in doing so, you not only create an extraordinary story for yourself, but you inspire others to do the same. You become a beacon of possibility, a living example of what can be achieved when one dares to dream, dares to imagine, dares to risk. My dear listeners, as we delve deeper into this profound truth of no risk, no story, let us explore further the nature of risk and its intimate connection to the power of imagination. For you see, risk is not merely about external action, but about a fundamental shift in consciousness. When we truly understand the power of our imagination, we realize that the greatest risk of all is to remain unchanged, to cling to our current state of being when we have within us the power to become anything we can imagine. Consider for a moment the caterpillar once again. From its perspective, the process of metamorphosis must seem like the ultimate risk. It must surrender everything it knows, everything it is, to become something entirely new. And yet, this risk, this complete transformation, is encoded in its very being. It is its destiny, its purpose. You, my dear listeners, are no different. Within you lies the seed of your own transformation, your own metamorphosis. But unlike the caterpillar, you have the power of choice. You can choose to remain as you are, or you can choose to risk everything to become who you truly desire to be. This choice, this willingness to risk, is the essence of living a life of power and purpose. It is the key to writing a story worth telling, a life worth living. Now, some of you might be thinking, but I've tried to change. I've taken risks before and nothing seemed to happen. To this I say, persistence is key. Remember, the outer world is a reflection of your inner state. If you persist in seeing yourself as unchanged, as stuck, then that is what you will experience. But if you persist in imagining yourself as you wish to be, if you continue to feel the reality of your desired state, if you live from that state in your imagination, then the outer world must, by law, conform to this inner reality. This, my listeners, is the true nature of risk. It is not about reckless action or blind leaps into the unknown. It is about daring to imagine a new reality for yourself and living from that imagined state with such conviction that it becomes your new normal. Think about it this way: every great achievement, every remarkable story, began as a mere imagining in someone's mind. The Wright brothers imagined human flight before it was a reality. Martin Luther King Jr. imagined racial equality before it was manifest. Every inventor, every pioneer, every agent of change first dared to imagine a different reality. And in that daring, in that willingness to believe in the unseen, to trust in the power of their imagination, they took the greatest risk of all. They risked being ridiculed, being called dreamers or fools. They risked failure and disappointment. But more than that, they risked their current identity, their current understanding of reality, for the sake of a greater vision. This, my dear listeners, is the kind of risk I'm calling you to take. The risk of truly believing in your own power, in the reality of your imagined state. The risk of letting go of your current self-concept for the sake of becoming who you truly desire to be. Now, let me be clear. This kind of risk doesn't always look dramatic from the outside. It's not always about quitting your job or moving to a new country, although it might involve these things. Often, the greatest risks are internal. They're about choosing to see yourself differently, to feel differently, to imagine a new reality for yourself even when all external evidence seems to contradict it. Imagine for a moment that you're an actor preparing for a role. You've been cast as a confident, successful person, someone who embodies everything you aspire to be. How would you prepare for this role? You would study the character, imagine how they would think, how they would feel, how they would move through the world. You would practice embodying these qualities until they felt natural to you. This, my listeners, is exactly what I'm asking you to do in your own life. Cast yourself in the role of the person you want to be. Imagine it vividly. Feel it deeply. Live from that state in your imagination. This is the risk I'm calling you to take, the risk of fully embodying your desired state, even before there's any external evidence to support it. You see, the world doesn't change first and then you change in response. No, you must change first in your imagination, in your feeling, in your belief about yourself. And then, as you persist in this new state, the world will rearrange itself to match your new conception of reality. This is the law, as immutable as gravity. What you imagine with feeling, what you accept as real in your mind, must manifest in your outer world. But here's the catch: you must persist. You must continue to live from this new state, regardless of any contradictory evidence in your current circumstances. This persistence, this unwavering faith in the reality of your imagined state, is perhaps the greatest risk of all. It requires you to trust in something unseen, to believe in a reality that exists only in your imagination. But it is this very risk that has the power to transform your life, to write a new story filled with wonder and achievement. So, my dear listeners, I challenge you now. Take that risk. Dare to imagine a new reality for yourself. Feel it. Live from it. Persist in it, regardless of any contradictory evidence in your outer world. For as you do this, as you take this ultimate risk in your imagination, you set in motion forces beyond your current comprehension. You activate the creative power of the universe itself. Remember, the world is not something that happens to you. It is something that happens from you. Your imagination is the creative force shaping your reality. And when you truly understand this, when you fully embrace this truth, you realize that the greatest risk of all is not using this power to its fullest extent. So go forth, my listeners, and risk greatly in your imagination. Dare to see yourself anew. Dare to feel the reality of your desired state. Dare to persist in this new vision, even when the outer world seems to contradict it. For it is through this daring, through this risk, that you write a story worth telling, that you live a life truly worth living. No risk, no story. Your blank pages await. What grand tale will you write with the pen of your imagination? The choice is yours. The power is yours. The time is now. Risk greatly, my listeners. Imagine boldly. Live fully. For in doing so, you not only transform your own life, but you become a beacon of possibility for all those around you. You become living proof of the transformative power of imagination, of the magic that unfolds when we dare to risk it all in pursuit of our grandest vision. Your story awaits. Your adventure beckons. Embrace it with all your heart, with all your imagination, with all your faith. For in the end, it is not the risks we avoid that define us, but the ones we dare to take in pursuit of our dreams. So go now, and make your story one for the ages. For remember, no risk, no story. And your story, my dear listeners, has the potential to be truly extraordinary.